Rob, thanks so much for joining us here. Whatever platform you're joining us from, let us know in the comments. We are going to do a quick little update here on this winter system that's going to be moving through. Might be for some of us, probably for some of us, will be the biggest storm that we've seen so far.
Yeah, no, we got a good one coming. It's just wild, what we've seen the last few days. This weekend we were talking about those temperatures into the upper 50s in some spots.
Oh, yeah, 60s.
And now we're talking about a winter storm because, look at this. We got the winter storm warning in effect for all of Connecticut. You were on this weekend taking a look at things, and the shoreline was always, usually left out a little bit there. And then this morning just popped on, and now this is going to be something that everyone is going to be dealing with as we go through, the next few days. So Rochelle and I are going to give you guys some updates. We're going to be on for about 20, maybe even 30 minutes or so. I got the Facebook feed pulled up here. So for all of our Facebook viewers, if you guys have any questions, Rochelle and I are here for you guys. So I have this pulled up here. I'm going to be going through trying to answer some of this stuff for you guys. So if you're watching on our streaming channel, you want to hop over to Facebook, ask a question real quick for us, and we can do that for you. Rochelle, what else we got going on?
I think we're also on YouTube as well. So we've got a couple of different areas where, maybe you don't have a Facebook account, but you have a YouTube account. You can hop over there and we'll pull that up just a little bit. But we do have that winter storm warning. By the way, I'm Rochelle J. This is Anthony Carpino. We were just like, oh, we've got this big storm. Let's jump right into it, right? So we've got this winter storm warning that's in effect. Starts at 1 o'clock this morning, Anthony.
Starts early.
1 o'clock Tuesday morning. So we've got that we're going to be keeping an eye on, right? So here's a look at some of our latest thoughts as far as the system goes, Anthony. So we've had some changes with the track, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's something that we've been kind of watching too. The last couple of model runs, there's definitely been that southerly shift. We're going to have to see, especially as the afternoon data starts to come in, does that trend continue? So what that would mean is maybe a little bit less snowfall in northwestern Connecticut, maybe a little bit less than 8 inches. But right now, we're still confident 8 to 12 for a good majority of the state. And, Rochelle, that's a lot of snow, in general.
It's a lot of snow.
When we have this come down at a good clip, this is going to start more or less 3 a.m. in southern Connecticut, lasting through about midday tomorrow. So that's a lot of snow at one chunk of time. So the snowfall rates will likely be high. And that could end up, coating the roads a little bit more. And that could lead to the crews just really having to go over it constantly throughout the morning.
Yeah, it's not just going to be the snow. We're also going to have the wind out there, right? So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Of course, everybody wants to know about the snow. How much are we going to get? How much in my town? So here's our current thinking. Still might be some tweaking to be done this afternoon. Of course, we'll be live on NBC Connecticut starting at 4 o'clock this afternoon. But right now we're thinking widespread 8 to 12. But as Anthony mentioned, maybe a little bit less for some of our northwestern hill towns, which is kind of flipped from what we would normally see.
It's usually not what we see.
That's not what we see. It's a little upside down as far as this map goes, but that's because of that shift southward that Anthony had mentioned just a second ago with the storm track, the center of the storm, that low pressure area. So this is what we're looking at right now. Make sure you tune in back in at 4 o'clock. We'll have some more updates on that. But right now we're going with 8 to 12, maybe a few areas, Anthony, that could see over that foot of snow. So we'll keep an eye on that again. This is starting super early tomorrow morning. So here's a look at live Doppler radar. This is where the storm is right now. No snow to be seen across the southern U.S. We've got thunderstorms. We've got flood risk down into the southern U.S. right now. There were a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. Good deal of rain now moving into areas of eastern Georgia right now. Almost the entire state of South Carolina is dealing with rain. Down into those areas, they've got a severe weather outlook right now. Level 2 out of 5 risk in place for southern Georgia and parts of the Florida Panhandle, northern Florida. Almost all of North Carolina, South Carolina, all of South Carolina is under that level 1 out of 5 risk. So maybe a couple of isolated storms in the orange, if you know anybody down there, could become strong or severe. Let's bring it back closer to home, right? Let's bring it back to our potential storm impacts for here in Connecticut. Accumulating snow and travel issues are going to be our main concerns. We touched on those gusty winds as well. That's going to be up there as far as concerns go, especially if you have to head out on the roads. We're going to be talking about coated roadways, those very, very potent snowfall rates at some points of the morning. So that's going to cause issues. Maybe your car doesn't have the best traction. You get one of those gusty winds in here for tomorrow. Might have some issues with that. Coastal flooding, not so much a concern for us here in Connecticut. Really, the snow, the winds, and the travel are going to be our biggest concerns. And with more on the timing, let's send things back over to Anthony to kind of get a better look at the timing of this system.
Yeah, guys. So as we go through, the next 24 hours, things are really going to start to develop for us. Now, I have been keeping an eye on the comments here on Facebook. I know a lot of you guys are asking how much in your town. I'll get to that in just a second. One of the other questions that we had, the risk for power outages. So I know that wasn't in Rochelle's graphic there, but especially in eastern, maybe southeastern Connecticut, where the winds could be just a little bit stronger. I wouldn't rule out a few isolated power outages, but this wouldn't be a widespread issue to deal with a loss of power. It's just those usual spots that have some trouble when we get a little bit of wind out there. If that's one of your spots, if you're out in the country in the trees, and it doesn't really matter how the wind blows, if you always get the lights flickering, you might run into that situation as we go through the morning tomorrow. But let's take a look at where this system is right now. Rochelle mentioned that risk for severe weather down south. This system will continue to develop as we go through the next 24 hours. So here it is late tonight. You can see all that rainfall working its way up the eastern coast there. Then as we get through tomorrow morning, these lines of equal pressure here, they start to get close together, and that indicates that the system is really starting to tighten up. We're getting the winds picking up a little bit more. Now we're working in some snowfall as we go through the early morning hours of Tuesday, and look how tight these lines are next to each other. So this system is what we call bombing out. It's a bombogenesis there, and all that snow starts to work its way. So what does this really mean? You've heard this term a lot. Bombogenesis. So it's when a storm intensifies rapidly, so it loses pressure, it drops in pressure, 24 millibars, which is just how we measure that, within 24 hours. So it is expected to really intensify, really pick up in intensity there as we go through the morning. Now, here's a closer look at home as we go through the morning tomorrow. So this is 3:30 in the morning. Notice the snow first for southern Connecticut. So places from Stamford to Bridgeport, New Haven, Chester, Groton, Stonington. Look at those temperatures. This isn't a lot of cold air in place. We have temperatures that will likely be into the 30s. And what that means is we're talking about a lot of heavy snowfall. The snow itself will be heavy versus the light, fluffy stuff that you can just blow around with the leaf blower or something like that. This will be heavy stuff. And as we move further inland, we even have those temperatures closer to that freezing point. Now, as we get through the morning commute, starting at 6 in the morning, look at these shades of coloring here. We have dark areas of blue across Connecticut, indicating those heavy snowfall rates, again, between 1 to possibly up to 3 inches per hour. That is going to be stuff where the crews will constantly have to be out there treating the roads, plowing all of that. And it's not going to be the greatest conditions for the morning commute. We'll continue through about 10 o'clock in the morning, still seeing some heavy snowfall at times, but it's as we get close to about midday or so, we'll start to notice things tapering off. First in western Connecticut, so from Colebrook, Torrington, New Milford, down through Danbury, you guys will start to see that relief as we go through midday and into the afternoon. And then it's places like Hartford to Middletown to Chester to Meriden, Windsor Locks. You'll see that next at about 3, 4 o'clock. And then it's eastern Connecticut. So places like Stonington, Norwich, Danielson, Killingly, Stafford, going out to Willimantic there as well. Finally seeing that snow wrap up as we get closer to dinner time. Now, I know this is the map that everyone wants to see. This is the one where we all have questions, of course. In general, we're thinking about 8 to 12 inches. Some spots could actually end up picking up a little bit more. Now, we mentioned as this system's been trending further south, I wouldn't be surprised for that northwest corner, maybe getting a little bit less, so closer to that 4 to 8 inch mark. Let me pull up. Go ahead, Rochelle.
About the temperatures, we've got the forecast right now on the 10-day, 36, 37. How cold is not cold enough? Like, how are the temperatures going to operate as we head through the day tomorrow with our current forecast, maybe in the mid 30s for highs?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point too. So one of the things that we look at, not only the temperatures, at the surface, but it's important to look at the entire column. So from a good high up point in the atmosphere all the way down to the surface. So we could have a lot of cold air higher up, and if we still have a little bit of warmer air at the surface there, as everything falls, it actually can help cool things down a little bit as we go through. But, as certain spots get into upper 30s, I think that might be a little tough to just keep it all snow. Of course, with the shoreline, you usually always have to battle that rain snow line. So I wouldn't be surprised to start if there was maybe just a few areas that saw some rain briefly, some mixed precipitation, and that might fight the shoreline in a couple of spots. But in general, this is looking like an all snow event there, even though those temperatures could be a little bit above freezing. I'm still trying to work my way back to the
and some folks are asking, will this qualify as a nor'easter? Someone on Facebook, who was this? Lori is asking, does this qualify as a nor'easter?
No, definitely. And, I'll go back to, let me see here. So let's go back through this one here. So it's really going to start as we get closer here.
Here, Anthony.
That's a good stopping point. Go ahead, Rochelle.
No, I was just going to say we can bring us back to the chroma key and we could talk a little bit about some of those winds that we're going to be seeing from the storm. So as far as peak wind gusts, these winds are going to be picking up as we head through the overnight, right? As far as peak gusts for us here in Connecticut, right now, we're thinking probably 30 to 40 miles an hour for a good portion of the state. Now, if you're in southeastern Connecticut, eastern Connecticut, maybe we can see some of those slightly higher wind gusts, but the strongest wind gusts for New England with this system probably going to be well off to our east. We're talking eastern Mass from the North Shore down through the South Shore, and maybe the strongest winds along the Cape and Islands. If you have family or friends out there, just let them know there are some high wind alerts that are currently in place for the Cape and Islands. But the strongest of the winds with this system in New England will probably be off to our east. 30 to 40 miles an hour is probably what we're thinking here at home. So as far as wind gusts go, let's time things out. So the wind's picking up as we head through the overnight. I'll step over here so you can see timestamp, top left of your screen. Here's 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. We've got those wind gusts possibly already 20 to 30 miles an hour for a good chunk of Connecticut and continuing to pick up as we head toward lunchtime for your Tuesday. You see, we've got some of those orange colors indicating maybe 40 plus mile an hour wind gusts, 30 to 40 for most of the state. But you see, strongest winds a couple hours away, farther off to our east, and maybe even some areas of eastern Long Island dealing with some of those strong wind gusts as we head into the afternoon, and sustained strong wind gusts probably through a good portion of the day across all of southern New England and Long Island as well. Maybe starting to calm as we head through the overnight, but right now it looks like Wednesday. You're into Valentine's Day. That's Wednesday, by the way, just in case you lost track of time here. Looks like it could be a little bit breezy or gusty on Wednesday as well. So we're talking about not just the winds for Tuesday and Wednesday, but once this system pulls away, we're talking about temperatures that are going to drop. So we're talking about half of what we had for high temperatures on Saturday for your Wednesday. So let's talk about what we're looking at for this system. We're really looking at, an impactful system here at home for Connecticut. And even once it moves out, starting early on Wednesday morning here, this is the wind chill that we're going to be talking about for Wednesday morning early. So, of course, things are going to be a little bit better as far as travel go for Wednesday. We'll have the plows that have been through, cleaned out things just a bit more. But we're waking up feeling like the teens, if not single digits, for our friends in the Litchfield Hills, and doesn't get very much warmer than that as we head through the day. Here's 10 o'clock on Wednesday as far as those feels like temperatures go. Still single digits to teens widespread because temperatures will have dropped behind the system. And then we'll also have very strong gusty winds during the day on Wednesday as well. So here's 2:30 in the afternoon, pretty close to the peak temperature of the day. This is what we're talking about on Wednesday. Thankfully, though, it is short-lived. We are going to see some milder air pushing in here as we go into the later parts of the week. But it does look like Wednesday, other than it being cold and windy, it's going to be bright. We'll have that sunshine that will have returned for the middle of the week. So that's at least something to look forward to if you're not a fan of the cold like me, Anthony. So there's something.
I don't know if anyone's always a fan of just the straight cold, Rochelle. I'm not a fan of it's going to be like 10 degrees outside. I don't know if anyone's really happy about that. But if it's going to be cold, at least let's have something that we can enjoy out there too. So I know not everyone is the biggest winter fan there. Let me go through some of your questions that you guys have right now. Let's see. So someone asked about travel ban possibilities. You know, I don't know the actual parameters right off the top of my head, but I will say if you have to go to work tomorrow at about 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning, well, maybe you want to try to work from home or see if you can get into the office just a little bit later. I think that morning commute is going to be a little bit tricky there, especially if you're using the highways, the secondary roads, all those kind of things. There's roads in general, they're going to be tough to treat because the snow is going to be coming down so hard there. Jared asks, is this a heavy, wet snow? Absolutely. This is going to be that really thick stuff. You don't want to use the shovel for this stuff. You're going to want to use the snowblower. Of course, if you only have a shovel, or if you're like me and the snowblower is broken down, you got to use the shovel. Well, remember, you want to lift with the knees, not the back. Save yourself a little bit of that strain there. Let me go through the temperatures again one more time, because I know we had the question about that earlier. As we start things off in the morning, I think this is where we're going to end up seeing kind of the warmest of those temperatures. Take a look at the shoreline here, starting off into the mid 30s. So from Bridgeport all the way through Groton and Stonington, 35 to maybe up to 37 degrees in a couple of spots. But watch what happens as we continue through the morning. Now this is 6:30 in the morning. We're dropping to, if not right around that freezing point, and then that continues as we go through the day. So we're going to start things off briefly with that chance of some maybe just plain rain briefly along the shoreline, some mixed precip as a possibility. Then it's just straight snow as we head through the second part of this event, as we go past about 7, 8 o'clock or so, in through the latter morning and in through the afternoon. And then timing this out again for you from Colebrook to Torrington to Danbury, this is about midday. You're noticing the snow starting to taper off. And then as we get closer to about 2 o'clock from Hartford, Windsor Locks, Middletown, Chester, the center portions of the state, will notice the snow really start to taper off by about 2 or 3 o'clock there. It's eastern Connecticut that will see the snow exit last. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were some snowflakes still left over by about 4, maybe even 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. But after dinner time, everything is getting a chance to dry out. And this is a look at what we're expecting as far as snow totals go. 8 to 12 inches across a good majority of Connecticut. A few isolated spots could get or up to a little bit more than a foot of snow. So I wanted to bring in the probability here. This is the probability of a foot or more of snow. This is from the Weather Prediction Center, which is part of NOAA. This light shade of blue here, you see it kind of wrapping around from the Hartford area, stretching up I-84 through Tolland County, going up through northern sections of Windham County, so places like Woodstock, Putnam, that general area, has about a 60% chance at seeing a foot, maybe even a little bit more of snowfall. And a good majority of Connecticut there as you go just around the Middletown area and go further off west to about Danbury. And that falls all the way back east as you go closer to just north of Norwich there, has about a 50% chance at that 12 or more inch mark. It's as you get to the shoreline where that could be just a little bit less. So only about a 20% chance at getting that foot of snow. That's where we started talking about that just brief chance at some mixing in the morning or some very wet snow along the Connecticut shoreline there. So that's what's going to be kind of what we're going to watch there. Those heavy bands of snow that will move in. Where those exactly set up will move this 60% chance either further north or further south. So that's what we're going to pay close attention to as we go through tomorrow morning. That's going to be kind of as we see it, as those snow bands really start to set up. So I wanted, of course, I know I mentioned this about the snowblower before, but that is going to be your best friend as we go through tomorrow morning. It's going to be heavy stuff. The snow shovel, it will work for you, but you're going to have to definitely get a full workout there. It's always good to have that ice melt on standby too. Let me go through this and see. I did see flights from Bradley. Patrick asked about that. If you have a flight or if you have family that's coming in tomorrow morning, well, they might have a couple issues there. I think everything should be in good shape, though, as we go through tomorrow night. I know we had a question. There's a lot of questions on here, guys, so thanks for posting those. I know we had a question in here about school delays for Wednesday. I have a good feeling that the roads will be in good shape by the time we get to Wednesday morning, but with just that cooler air working its way back into the state, I wouldn't be surprised if there was just still left over a couple delays and stuff as we go through Wednesday morning. So kind of keep that in mind. I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow, though, if there was a lot of school closings. I wouldn't even say delays. I would say school closings completely at this point. Yeah, Rochelle?
Yeah, for sure. I would say closings.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that even yesterday, just with some
Yeah.
of the numbers and the timing of it as well, right? We're talking
It's
about this
just tough.
starting at 2, 3 in the morning, and
to go all the way
heaviest
through.
of the snow is when kids would be heading out to school and going to, lunch and recess and stuff. So here's just a look, just kind of recapping our latest thoughts. We're about an hour away from our newscast here on NBC Connecticut, the news at 4, of course. We're looking at a southerly storm track shift. So the storm, just down to the south a little bit. So that will, of course, change where the axis of heaviest snow will be farther to the south versus, where we would typically see it in the north. Still questions on if the trend will continue to maybe move farther southward, or if this is, what the storm is actually going to do. We mentioned heaviest snowfall, probably 7 o'clock in the morning to midday, but once that heavier snow really starts to pick up, it will have already snowed for a few hours here in Connecticut. And we're looking at 8 to 12, still the most likely outcome for most of the state. Now, if the system continues to push farther down toward the south, we'll see lower totals in northern and northwestern Connecticut, where we typically see those higher numbers. So we'll keep an eye on that storm track. Still some uncertainty with that, even though we're just a few hours away from the system really starting to move in. So here's a look at the impacts. Here's what we're thinking. Accumulating snow and travel issues, those are going to be our biggest concerns with this, right? But on top of that, we'll also have gusty winds picking up overnight toward the middle of the day. I think that's when we'll probably see some of those strongest winds here in Connecticut, kind of coinciding with some of the heaviest snow as well. So we could also be talking about reduced visibility. Coastal flooding, not so much an issue. Our winds won't be as strong as they will be farther east into Rhode Island, Eastern Mass, the Cape and Islands, but we'll still have some of those stronger, gustier winds that we'll need to contend with, along with this wet, heavy snow that we're talking about, that again is going to start very early in the morning, continuing through most of the morning into the afternoon before tapering off later in the day on Tuesday. Anthony.
All right, Rochelle. Yeah, so as we go through tomorrow, we are going to keep a close eye on that system as it gets closer to Connecticut. I wanted to show you guys the 10-day really quick here. So we do have all that snowfall as we go through tomorrow. Temperatures inland are going to stay into the mid 30s there. And then as we go through a good majority of next week, we're actually, the rest of this week and into next week, we're actually going to be nice and quiet. So we like that, Rochelle, right? Nice and quiet and getting a little bit of a warm up there too. So here's that shoreline forecast, 40s as we get closer to Thursday there. So looking forward to the 40s kind of coming back. If you're a fan of the snow, fortunately, we don't have any crazy mild weather that will just get rid of it all at once. But what will be nice is
one can wish, one can hope.
The good news is the 40s will help melt any kind of the ice and that kind of stuff that's going to be on the roads themselves. So that's a plus there. We're not going to have to worry about all that ice and all that kind of stuff. Just make sure you put that snow melt out and you should be in good shape. But let me go through. Rochelle, I don't know if you saw any questions when you were over there.
I did not. The last question I saw was about flight delays, but I do want to remind folks, we're going to update 10-day, but Wednesday is going to be quite cold. We're talking about those wind chills not probably getting any higher than 20 degrees for most of the state. So cold Valentine's Day. Get your person some soup. Some warm soup, bread bowl.
A Panera bread bowl. Oh, now I'm hungry. We haven't had lunch yet.
We haven't had lunch yet. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of weather to talk about this afternoon.
Yeah, and Ryan's going to have much more on the forecast. He's going through that right now. Going to make some tweaks if that's needed, and he'll have the latest coming up at 4 o'clock, and we'll have team coverage going on this evening as well.
Yeah, and then we'll also be on streaming tomorrow morning. Very early tomorrow morning, and we'll be on there for a few hours as well. So if you're catching us on any of our streaming platforms, make sure you bookmark it, do what you need to do so that you can really quickly access it when you're waking up in the morning. And we may be back on social, Facebook and YouTube. I know we're on there right now. We may be back on those as well. While we're streaming in between today's show cut-ins and things like that.
And like Rochelle said, we'll have team coverage throughout the day tomorrow. We'll be out in Snow Monster as well. So if you see us drive around in Snow Monster, always say hi. We always like to see everyone. And we'll be out and about everywhere, just making sure you guys know the latest. And we'll get through tomorrow together and I'm looking forward at least to some snowfall out there for sure.
I'm the only one on the team that does not like snow. So anybody else out there that doesn't like snow, I'm right there with you.
Brian will have much more updates coming up on tonight at 4 o'clock. We'll have team coverage throughout the day tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.